Hi, I'm Dr. Pat Boulogne, and I help people, especially executives and entrepreneurs, get more out of their day by improving their health, their productivity, their prosperity, and their peace of mind. Catch me on this week's Jesse T Show. I think that's called Einstein's time. Einstein's time is being in your groove, and I think kids are perpetually in that groove. So when I'm coaching someone and someone's telling me that they don't have time, and I said, like, what? I go, are you looking at a clock every 10 minutes? Sometimes they are.
Yeah.
And that's Newtonian time. But if you're doing what you love and you're in your segment and you're in your moment, like kids are, then that's kind of like Einstein time, because Einstein talks about being able to have sometimes parallel universes. And I have always found that interesting as a kid. Like you say that, you don't have any concept of time. Like, well, how long does it take to get there?
Yeah.
And then you always, oh, it's just over there, and like it's 10 miles away, something like that. I had a friend's kid that I was watching and hanging out with. And so we went out to get ice cream. And when I was in LA one time at a conference and staying at his house. And so he, his son, he goes, I'll be your date tonight. And so he goes, my dad gave me enough money to buy you an ice cream. And I go, wow. I don't know what I'd do without that ice cream. But it was so much fun just to see the perspective, like, the way that he took me to go to the ice cream store was like over the river and through the woods.
Yep.
It was really only a couple blocks away. But my friend said the reason why he does that is so he can experience what his neighborhood looks like.
Unbelievable.
And so that's how he learned to go the way that his dad, brought him over to have the ice cream as a treat as a kid. And then that's how he got to know his neighborhood also.
It's incredible. And I think that, being able to bottle that up and being able to get to a place where you're childlike, there's so many benefits to that, from an emotion, heart space to a time space. But it's funny because I have a brother that I'm doing life with. He's a former Green Beret. So you would think he's like this badass top, 1% in his industry of what he does. Mm-hmm. And he's come back from that. And now he's an entrepreneur, a consultant. He's someone who's profound in my life. He's big into exploration and spirituality, and he's going to see someone that we call the time master. And so this guy is somewhere down in Peru, and I'll be down in Peru in March as well doing my own journey, but he's going to see this time master who can, I don't understand it fully yet because I haven't experienced it, but he basically can manipulate time in certain ways to his favor. And he's not someone that like comes out of the woodwork. Like you have to seek this guy out. It's like this weird kind of cool adventure he's going on. So I'm excited to hear what he comes back with, because you're starting to hear these things more and more about quantum mechanics and time. And I've experienced some of these things where I've known in my soul that something's already happened, and I've believed in it so heavily and just knew, not even believed in it, but just knew. And it's happened. Time didn't catch up, but it happened the way it was going to happen. It's so weird to explain.
Well, it's almost like deja vu, right?
Yeah.
So when you have those deja vu moments, like, I know that I've been here before. There's, the familiarity for, I have a huge fondness for Italy. I don't have a huge fondness for Spain. But for Italy, I have a huge fondness. So I go to Spain a lot, but I used to with my last year. And, but Italy always feels like I'm home. Yep. I always sleep well there. And, I could take, when I first went there, when, maybe 30 years ago, something like that, I walked around Rome without a map. I looked at it. I knew where I wanted to go, and I just headed in that direction. And I ended up there. And it was just very, very familiar to me, like what it visually looked like. So there's that, even, in other places in Italy too, like in Pisa, where, I lived right down the street when I was taking language courses in Pisa from where Galileo was, locked up. And, interesting enough, before I went there for that purpose, we had an alignment of stars in Boston, and you're from Boston, right? So I lived in Harbor Towers, and I lived in the front tower. So the people who live in the second tower had this really brilliant white light that they would turn on, and it came into my bedroom. And I just said, can we ask these people if they can point it in the other direction? I don't care if it's on. I just don't want to see it when I'm trying to go to sleep. And so one night I'm thinking, gosh, I said, I'm so irritated. Those people are so inconsiderate. You know, they have their light on again. And I opened my shade and they didn't have their light on again. But what I saw was the same configuration that Galileo saw, that made him realize, that the world was round and not flat. What a paradigm shift that is. And so, in which got him in prison, right? And so and at the same time, I was reading the book Galileo's Daughter, who just talked about that one particular thing. And so when I opened my shades and I pulled my telescope out at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm watching it, it woke me up. It was like bright, chipper, alert. And the next morning I got on and that's when I made my reservations to go to Italy. I have to go see Galileo. I've got to go have that connection. But there's cities in Europe that just feel so familiar to me. Paris, it does the same thing. London, and Rome, I have this affinity for, that whole area. It's like, if anybody wants to take a tour, I can tell you where to go. It makes me feel like, like when you're like touching, like people go to cemeteries sometimes and they touch tombstones, because all energy is created, right? It doesn't get destroyed. It's still there. And everything's frequency. So if the frequency is something that jives with you and that you've experienced before, I think there's the potential to, that deja vu moment really happened.